This is Liberty Chat. We're going to you live on Facebook. I'm your host, Justin Campbell. Today, my guests are Nicola Wright, senior writer at Liberty Works, and Libby DownUnder, a YouTube libertarian. So on today's agenda, we're discussing the NBN, pregnant people, the continued controversy around safe schools. But first of all, yesterday the High Court ruled that 5 of the 7 MPs who were coming under Section 44 of the Australian Constitution were ineligible to be in Parliament. So that means Malcolm Roberts, Larissa Waters, Scott Ludlam, Barnaby Joyce, Fiona Scott were all ineligible to be in Parliament. Both Nick Xenophon and Matthew Canavan were both cleared. So from the Liberty Works perspective, we're particularly sad to see Malcolm Roberts gone. He's done a lot of events with us, and he's always been a good person to deal with, and he's always been on the smaller government side of things. On the good news side of things, Matthew Canavan is remaining, and he's a source of reason on the whole energy side of things. So we're glad that he's remaining and not now having to run for Parliament in Italy. So I'll go to our 2 panelists. First of all, Nicola, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so but my understanding is that they've probably done the right thing and made the right ruling. So basically, what they've said is that this information was knowable by whoever it is that's dug deep on the Green senators to start with. So if it's knowable to an outsider, it should have been knowable to the parliamentarians themselves when they were submitting their candidacies. So I guess it's fair. But I am a little disappointed to see Malcolm Roberts go, because I think he's done good things. He's kind of opened up the Overton window on things that can be said, especially around climate change and stuff, even though he's been made out to be a madman. So I think he's a man with integrity, so it's sad to see someone with integrity leave. And also I'm a bit of a Barnaby fan, I admit, so I'm a bit sad about that, but I'm sure he'll be back.
Libby, what are your thoughts?
Again, I'm not a constitutional lawyer myself. Now, whilst all this hoo-ha was happening in the past few months, you know, the matter keep popping up in the news and what have you, it caused a bit of, I suppose for me personally, it kind of got me thinking, you know, what if I've got some skeletons in my closet that I don't know about? So what I went off and did, I tried my best as a non-lawyer, as a laywoman, to try to read my parents, they were both born in Vietnam. I went off to read the Vietnamese law, I think it's called the Law on Nationality, 2008. And that became a headache to read. But what I should have done earlier, was I gave the local Vietnamese embassy a phone call, just a few, just to satisfy my curiosity if I've got an entitlement to Vietnamese citizenship. Because they, before 2008, Vietnam had a one nationality only policy, and then they were open to dual citizenship 2008 onwards, creating a grey area. But they gave, I suppose, for layman's terms, to me, it wasn't too hard, 1 or 2 phone calls. So there's a part of me where I'd like to sympathise with the Citizenship 7 that, the way the Constitution is written, the word entitlement, it's chucked into Section 44. So it's obviously created this grey area and hasn't evolved there's a part to sympathise on that basis, but then there's a part of me, well, if it was that simple for me to give local Vietnamese embassy or just a quick check, and they didn't take very long to respond. I feel conflicted, but in a way, I can't really sympathise.
Right. Yeah. So, I agree. With what you were saying there, that there's obvious sympathy. A lot of people don't think that this should be in the Constitution, but it is.
I think it's fair that it is. I mean, if you're going to be holding the kind of the high offices of the country, then you ought to be a citizen and not try and hang on to your dual citizenship and just make your loyalties clear. And like Libby was saying, it's not that hard to find out if you're a citizen or not. I just think that they've just been blasé about it and just thought, which is not right. So people will be taking it seriously from now on. You can guarantee.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They certainly will be. I think what they did with these 5 is that the ones who were basically, there was no possible excuse really for not knowing in those cases, they got them. But what they didn't want it to be was too hard and fast. That's why I think Xenophon and who was the other one who got? I think they wanted a little bit of wiggle room, but I think for those of us who are constitutional conservatives, I think it's great the High Court hasn't just decided to ignore the Constitution, because they like to do that a lot, and it's good that that they're applying a more literal conservative approach to the Australian Constitution. Libby, do you want to say any final things on that?
Not particularly. Well, I actually didn't address earlier just then, what the outcome was. And basically the answer I got was because I don't have paperwork, my parents don't have, for another country, they came to Australia on refugee status. I don't have paperwork, they don't have paperwork, so I'm glad that I know that I don't have any skeletons in the closet, and no, I don't have any entitlements. So it did put me at ease. But again, that wasn't too hard for me to do. I'm more likely to side with the High Court in this case. It's not that hard. And if you really, if you're a career politician, so to speak, you would think before running as a candidate for party, you would take, every single thing to do with your candidature very seriously.
Oh, absolutely. And, I was, and I noticed no Labor Party candidates got done by this. And I've been in the Labor Party, and I know they've got a well-oiled machine, and maybe the Liberal Party and the National, it was mainly the National Party. Maybe it's a bit of a gentleman's pastime running the conservative side of politics. It's just that they didn't pick up on these things because it hasn't seemed to have caught the Labor Party out. So we'll move on in our agenda. So we'll bring on the NBN Shambles. So you would have all watched. You would have all watched the Four Corners. A lot of you probably would have watched, and it's the same old thing. The story that they run that Kevin Rudd had this brilliant NBN scheme, and Malcolm Turnbull ruined it by going fibre to the node, and all of the issues can be traced back to that. But no one ever challenges the wisdom of creating a government monopoly to handle the NBN, to upgrade our broadband. There's not a lot of interest in the fact that the old NBN was failing, and it shows a lot of lack of political instinct not to have just continued the Rudd NBN and watch it fail. If you were the Liberal Party, that's what you'd do, and then you just constantly point at it and go, look at this horrible failure that the Labor Party stuck us with. But instead, they tried to fix it, and now they're stuck with all the problems inherent in creating a giant government-created monopoly. So,
but wasn't there just like a huge price difference though, in terms of fibre to the node and fibre to the resident? So, I mean, you could say they were trying to save some spending.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. I mean, people dispute that, but obviously running fibre to every home. I mean, I just got hang on, I just got cable and before the NBN, and now I've got HFC NBN, which runs through the same cable. And they had to get someone to dig a trench to run a cable to my house. So this is a big expensive job that, and just imagine doing that for every single house. This whole upgrading our network thing is a big job. So there's no easy solution. And when I got my NBN, the router they gave me was crap. So initially I had really bad internet, and I quickly worked out it was a router issue. And I didn't want to fight with Telstra about it, so I just went and bought a new router. But so I think there's lots and lots of issues like that causes individual people to have really bad experiences with the NBN. So, Libby, do you have any thoughts on this? Hello?
Not too much. I will. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry.
Not too much. I think it's that. Not too much. I doubt that for all the grand planning on the federal government's part of it, there's now talks that I've heard that by the time the NBN is finished, by then G5 or 5G, I should say, should by then become the thing. By then, the NBN project finishes. So, it's always a healthy approach to big government projects and monopolising and all that fun stuff, or not so fun stuff. But it is a shame that there was no wisdom, foresight on the Liberal Party's part, that it was a rabbit and they were only going deep into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we'll move on to New Zealand now, and all right. So Jacinda Ardern, their new Prime Minister, has said capitalism is a blatant failure, that despite their impressive growth rates, they've seen the highest homelessness in the developed world. So New Zealand's for a long time, especially internationally, not so much in Australia, has been held up as this great example of liberalising an economy. And now we're going to see what's happening under this new Prime Minister. So Nicola, do you have any thoughts on what's happening in New Zealand?
Not really. I'm just having a look through the article that you've linked. I think it's a bit disappointing the way the government has been formed. I mean, as for her comments about capitalism, we all know that that's rubbish. So It's a bit disappointing for New Zealand, because I think they were doing things well, probably going better than we were in many ways. So we'll probably look to see that being reversed.
How about you, Libby? What are your thoughts?
So, in a way, those comments of hers are quite fortuitous, because recently I watched a documentary narrated by Johan Norberg. He's a Scandinavian libertarian, and the name of the documentary, Trailblaze, the New Zealand story. And it was quite an eye-opener, because there was, the ordinary folk who went through the hard times in New Zealand in the 60s and 70s and the early 80s. Plumbers were interviewed, and they talked about, as of the 60s, New Zealand did a whole lot more regulation, you know, government in New Zealand just got that much bigger as these onwards. And then in the 70s, I think it was the 70s, they introduced price controls in the primary industries in New Zealand. So, and the whole intent, good intentions and intent one wasn't good for farmers. You know, a paternalistic approach of here's a helping hand, but yeah, it ruined primary industries. I mean, one of the stories that popped up was for a Japanese TV set to come from Japan to New Zealand. So it come as a whole, but because of regulations around TVs and what have you, you'd have to pull apart parts and then put it back together. So, you know, TVs and other consumer items, they weren't all that affordable. So hearing those comments, new New Zealand Prime Minister, is she saying that we want to go back to the 70s and 80s where farmers were in the long far worse off under price controls, where you had Japanese TVs, you know, as good as they were, no, we have these regulations, so we have to cut the TV sets and then put it together to protect industries in New Zealand involved with TVs, electronics, I suppose. Is that what she wants to go back to?
Yeah, well,
that's what it sounds like to me.
I don't think she knows what she means, really, to be honest. But yeah, look, this, to be honest, no, this doesn't surprise me about New Zealand. That a lot of Kiwis I've met have been, by Australian standards, quite left wing and sort of an old school left wing, like very big welfare state. You know, very pro trade unions, that sort of thing. So it really doesn't surprise me that there's been this swing back against all these reforms. And I think lots of groups like Cato and whatnot have championed the fact that in New Zealand it's so easy for government to get things done because they don't have a constitution, they don't have a Senate. All it has to pass is that one unicameral parliament that they have. They don't have federation. But now they're going to see the downside of that. So in 5 years' time, when they're all working on the collective dairy, they're going to be, I wish there were a few more constitutional checks in our system, perhaps. So, Nicola, any last thoughts on that issue?
No.
Hello? No? Okay. All right. Okay, so the next thing we're going to now is this issue of pregnant people. So the Foreign Office in the United Kingdom has made a submission to the UN that so I can tell you what actual body that was. That we don't call mothers expectant mothers. We call them pregnant people or expected people. Now, this is a bit crazy, don't we think? So, Libby, we'll go to you on that one.
You know, I love it's, you know, on matters, on trans rights matters, on anything to do with you know, addressing such disadvantages that trans people face. Well, as a trans woman myself, again, great intentions, but usually those kind of intentions will way to hell. And you would have seen me laughing quite a bit just then, because I'm not offended by you know, most women, they can fall pregnant. Some women can't fall pregnant. Some women who can't fall happen to be transgender women, I'm a transgender woman. There aren't too many of us. So what supposed disadvantage is, I think you said it's for UK foreigners. What supposed advantage are they trying to address? Is it allegedly my feelings? I mean, I have, there's real issues in this world. And so, here in Australia, electricity prices, the size of government, the federal budget deficit, issues. And I'm sure in the UK, similar issues, but apparently the word pregnant woman causing offence to trans women such as myself, apparently that's a big issue. Where's the priorities? I'm not offended myself. Again, most women can fall pregnant. Some women can't for various reasons. Some of those women are women, and so what? Well, there's big issues for us to move on to and tackle, and this is just a distraction. And it's not serve trans people well on this front.
Yeah, it just seems to me a lot of these trans activist issues just seem to we're still a very long way away from like trans men and women having sort of a fair go in our society, and these issues that are brought up by, I would suspect, a tiny minority of the trans community and their so-called allies are just hurting it. I just see so much anti-trans stuff online now, and a lot of it's because of this kind of crap. So
yeah, I agree. I think it's just counterproductive, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think the main people that are worried about are trans men who may want to get pregnant in the future but don't want to call themselves women, are the people that they're most concerned about. So if you consider if trans people are 0.3% of the population, then trans men are going to be 0.15%. And what percentage of those people are actually offended by the term pregnant women? I mean, it's crazy. It'd be minuscule amounts of people. And who it has upset is a whole bunch of feminists who think that women are being erased from language. So it's a bit of a shit fight,
Yeah.
For what purpose? So what is it achieving?
So the first thing trans men are doing when they become men is adopting male privilege. So and they're defining and I would challenge the notion that a man can give birth, because I think the ability to get pregnant and have a child is probably the defining quality of what a woman is. And like that's a big part of the definition. So if you're giving birth to a child, I would challenge whether like that's not really living as a man. Like that's not what we do as men. We don't give birth to children.
Sorry, you carry on.
Yeah, go on, Luke.
That's okay. So I don't want to speak. So what I was saying earlier, I was speaking as a trans woman. Don't really want to speak on behalf of trans men.
Absolutely, yeah.
My understanding is that some trans men growing up before transitioning, the thought of going to labour or giving birth to a child, naturally, and this is just stories I've read online, it's a horrifying thought to them. And that's not too much of a surprise, because I think most men, whether trans or cis, like you were saying, it's predominantly a woman's experience. So I don't necessarily disagree with the point you make that, it's more or less it's a woman's experience. Yeah, I again don't want to speak on behalf of them. But, the political correctness, and what does it indicate? It's indicated And we see it that cultural Marxism has infiltrated the LGBTI community, it's infiltrated the trans community. I don't associate myself too closely with the trans community these days. It's I didn't leave the community. The community left me as cultural Marxism flexed and continued to grow its influence.
So, Libby, do you feel like the environmentalist who says, "Oh, maybe we should build a nuclear power plant"? Are you basically that person in the trans community?
Look, you could say that because I'd like to take a common sense approach to things. I like to socially, I like to be able to meet halfway with people, and that's not to say I'm into the business of acquiescence, and I'm not into that business. I've got principles, and everyone's got principles, and I'll stick to them, and people will stick to their principles. But I'm happy to listen to the other side of the story, so to speak, and ultimately everyone's entitled to free speech, and there's not too much free speech going on in the LGBTI, the trans communities. There's not too much going on in that communities these days.
No, it doesn't sound like it. So the next issue we have is this banning of the latest NOAD, which focuses on the safe schools issue. So, Nicola, this was an issue you highlighted. So, would you like to go into that?
Oh, I just think it's a little bit of kind of delicious irony, I suppose, that there's a no ad campaign ad that was knocked back by the TV networks. Well, not knocked back, but it could only be aired after 8:30 and have an MA rating, because the ad actually quotes some material from Safe Schools program. So the ad includes screens that have passages that say penis in the vagina, sex is not the only sex and certainly not the ultimate sex. And also it's a total lie that all guys have dicks and that all girls have vaginas. This is too risque and too rude for TV. And yet it's in the Safe Schools program that is taught to kids from grade 7 and up. So I think it just kind of really is almost a win for anti-safe schools people. I think they should be making more of it, actually, that their actual ad is too rude for TV. An indictment on some of the content that parents in Victoria don't have any say over. I'm not sure if they don't have any say. I think they can opt for their kids not to be taught anything from the curriculum. I'm not 100% sure, though. So that was interesting, I thought.
Yes. Libby, what are your thoughts on this issue?
So, first of all, my understanding is that parents, are you guys getting feedback? No?
Yeah, we are. Look, what I'm doing is I'm just, when you're not speaking, I'm muting you, and that's getting rid of the feedback. So.
Okay, that's okay.
Go on. Yeah.
Thanks for that. So that's good. Sorry. So my understanding is that under Safe School, parents do have a level. They are allowed a level of involvement from a consent point of view. To what extent they can allow their children to engage with Safe Schools, but again, the censorship that's been put on this NOAD, well, it again highlights it comes down to the fundamental issue with Safe Schools, which I've argued in my most recent video blog, which is, I mean, you've got these lefties that are coming onto my Facebook page and, making all these arguments that, go to the Department of Education of Victoria and you can see that, it's all PG and below rated stuff. The issue of Safe Schools is, first of all, you know, if it really is about anti-bullying, and if we're serious about anti-bullying at school, why do we need safe schools? So why do we need to effectively put the focus on LGBTI kids? It's dividing non-LGBTI kids from LGBTI kids. If anti-bullying is a concern for all children, why do we need safe schools? So that's the most fundamental flaw in safe schools. Instead of seeing all kids as kids, you know, some kids are left-handed, some kids are gay, some kids have some sort of disability.
Wear glasses.
Yeah. It opens the can of worms, and we've seen the can of worms, especially initially when schools first came about, inappropriate content. Now, whilst it is in a way assuring to see that there is political pressure out there to put a lid on the content devolving into inappropriateness, it's the can of worms. It's still open. You open the can of worms, you can put a bit of Glad wrap on it, or put a lid on it. The can of worms has opened, and in my view, safe schools need to go. I believe the Victorian government wants to make safe schools mandatory in all schools by next year. I sincerely hope that they do lose the election next year. I think there's an election next year. This is the can of worms that's got to go. They don't want the can of worms to go. I believe the Victorian Labor government needs to go.
So just to share an experience, I don't think that any of these programs actually work anyway, because I was walking past my local high school the other day, and as one of the teenagers drove past me, I was on my scooter, and he called me a faggot. So there's still plenty of hate out there.
You can't mandate bad behaviour away.
But you can. What you can do is teach respect at school, respect for all. Teach kids how to be resilient, and all that. Why not that? Why safe schools? Why? I mean, I didn't need safe schools growing up, but yeah. I was just saying.
Sorry, Libby. Yeah.
I'll quickly finish up. I didn't need safe schools growing up. There were more important things that teachers had to focus on teaching.
Look, I mean, I think a lot of us aren't hostile to the idea of, genuine anti-bullying stuff going on, and but it's just the fact that it's a way of them putting in a whole agenda which not everyone's on board with. It's whether people like it or not everyone accepts all that gender theory. So, but Nicola, I just wanted to hear your final thoughts on this issue, and then we'll move on.
I think I've covered it, Justin.
Okay, all right. So we'll move on then to the blackfacing issue. So, Nicola, do you want to explain what's been going on with blackfacing?
I just wanted to talk about Stephen Michelson, who's one of Bill Shorten's staffers. He's actually been working for him for about 7 years, I think, who recently resigned sometime during the week, citing wanting to spend more time with his family after meeting with Bill Shorten. And it turns out that someone else from within the Labor Party, from another faction, found a photo of him back in 2007 at a party dress up with blackface, and that is supposed to be so morally repugnant to normal Australians that I guess he has to resign before it comes out and makes Bill Shorten look somehow bad. But you know, my opinion is I'm totally revolted and repulsed by that behaviour more than anybody putting on a blackface costume at a party, especially 10 years ago when it wasn't even a thing. So I just find that disgusting. And I think, you know, the only way we can stop this sort of stuff growing is for these kind of people who are caught out doing this really bad thing of doing blackface is to just not be that sorry about it or apologise and move on and stand your ground. And, you know, Bill Shorten could have just stood by him and said, I don't care about that rubbish. And to me, I would have so much more respect for him if that's the approach, instead of this kind of sleazy, you know, excuse making. We all know about the blackface image, but then the official excuse is spending time with his family. It's just dirty.
Yeah. But then, Bill Shorten might not be PM, so yes. Oh well. The whole blackfacing issue. I mean, it's the one thing is, it's like, this is Australia. This is not America. We did not have a Mistral tradition anyway. So when the first one blew up, remember when there was like on the revamped Hey Hey It's Saturday, or there was some skit that some guys did, and it went international, and all the Americans were like, oh my God. And they were like brown people too. They weren't even white, the people doing it. They were going, oh, they were blackfacing. And it's sort of like, well, that's your culture. This is a different country. It's not, you know, like, I think anyone who does it now is out of their mind. Like, if you show up at a party blackface, you're an idiot, because surely
in 2007 it wasn't a thing, was it? So, you know, is this all they've got on the poor guy, that he dressed up in blackface in 2007? I mean, that tells me he's done nothing wrong probably in any other area of his life.
Which is really, really sad. So he would not cut it as a LDP candidate, because you know, like, that's way too much obeying laws there to ever be an LDP candidate. So, any thought on this?
Not too much. Look, I'm not too much a fan of blackfacing. Having said that, should one lose their job over one, then I'll go, yes, a lack of judgment.
You're cutting out there. Look, we're losing Libby there. Like, it keeps cutting out. So we might move on to the next issue. Sorry about that, Libby.
I just wanted to add one more thing, Justin. Sorry.
Sure. Yes.
With the whole kind of SJW type of witch hunt stuff that goes on, if more people were just didn't grovel at their feet, then I think this whole thing would die down. I think it's like the apologies and, you know, the groveling, and it's like prostrating yourself in public, and it just feeds the beast. I mean, look at J.K. Rowling. She was accused of cultural appropriation last year, and she just ignored it completely. Oh, it was her latest book, and she used lots of things from Native American culture and mythology, and interwove them into her book. Actually, I think it was a play script. And yeah, so there was kind of the usual uproar about how dare she kind of appropriate this stuff just to sell money in her books. So she just completely ignored it, and it just fizzled out. Which I thought,
that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Like, literally, you just got to go, yeah, we're not firing such and such. That's what you need to do. So we've lost Libby entirely now. So it's just you and I. So we'll move on to the AWU raid. So hang on, I'm just gonna. So the AWU raid. So this has been a big issue for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of bad stuff around the AWU when Bill Shorten was running it. Now the federal government and the federal police have raided the AWU to find evidence. But the big controversy was that the media was tipped off about this.
Yeah.
The media was, and it became from Michaela Cash's office, and some staffer had to fall on their sword for it. So it's very similar to the whole blackface thing, that some poor staffers now lost their job for something that the minister most likely ordered.
Yeah, for following instructions. It's like something out of In the Thick of It. You can just imagine all this crazy stuff going on in the office. Like, who's going to go down for this, you know? It went up to the highest levels. The Prime Minister was humiliated. Like, whose head's going to roll? Just makes you feel sick, really.
Yeah,
and they do this all the time, don't they? Leak stuff to the media, and they just mistimed it so badly that the media were there before it happened. And
it's a total amateur hour, and there's a lot of bad stuff around the unions and things. But you know what? Like, if they took the libertarian approach to this issue, which is, and I've written an article about it, that basically you should be able to donate for whoever you want. So if you want to build a big stinking mine, and some MPs for mining, and you want to give them a whole ton of money, you should be able to. It's sort of an extension of your free speech. And in the same way, like, they go, oh, you know, union money's been given to the Labor Party and been given to the Greens and Get Up and all of this kind of thing. And, well, you know, at the end of the day, unions are membership organisations. It's pretty dodge. If I were a union member, I wouldn't be happy with it. But if they just let like a laissez-faire approach, it's probably all even. But what they try to do is the Conservative side try to like regulate the unions when they're in, and you wait, when Labor's in, or what's happening in Queensland at the moment, they're going to try to stop property developers or somebody like that who'll give money to Conservatives. They will try to ban that, and it's ridiculous. I mean, people want to support who they want to support.
True.
That's very concise of you there, Nicola. Now
I haven't prepared anything for that.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, it's so we might just wrap up talking about Liberty Fest. So Liberty Fest was you know, we just had Liberty Fest Brisbane. It was a huge success. Massive turnout, lots of it was a broad range of people there, wasn't it? So it was sort of ranged from conservative types to libertarian types. So, and we had the famous Daisy Cousins speech that's now gone. Is now a YouTube hit, and has broken YouTube servers because it's 165,000 views. So a few more than that are watching this live stream right now.
Just a few.
And but we had a debate on same-sex marriage, which got quite heated.
Fantastic.
So that was a lot of fun. And all of this stuff is going online soon, so you'll be able to watch it if you missed. And we've got one. We're hoping to do one in Perth. So, you know, keep checking your inbox. Check on our website. Subscribe to the Liberty Works Facebook page, because we've got more of these conferences coming up, and they're exciting places to be.
Yeah, it's good. Good fun.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap this up?
Well, we do have one Perth event coming up on the 14th of November. It's Ian Plimer's book launch in Perth for his Climate Delusion book. The 14th. Have a look on our Facebook page for more details, and come along, and I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Yes, that's right. And he is a very entertaining speaker.
He's a great speaker.
Yes. So we got to listen to Ian Plimer at Liberty Fest. So for all those Perth people who couldn't come, That's an event not to be missed. And also we've got an event in Brisbane for Melbourne Cup. Nick Cater is coming and talking, and so that also will be a great event. So you can go to you can buy tickets for both these events at libertyworks.org.au, and the links are also on our Facebook page. So for those people who watched today, thank you very much. And we're going to be doing this weekly. There's still a few technical glitches here and there, but the idea is that we're going to do this for the end of this year, and we've got some exciting programming ideas to come out for next year. So
and if you want to join us.
That's right. Absolutely. That's the other thing too, is we're really hoping to have a real diversity of guests on this program. So thank you for your time this afternoon. Have a great rest of your weekend.
See ya.